Hey guys, this is Mr. V over here today to do a book review for Tales from the Gas Station Volume 3 by Jack Townsend. Before I get into my book review, you guys should know I try to do a spoiler-free book review, so if you see me looking down occasionally, I just have notes, so I try not to give any spoilers away. So, let's get into Tales from the Gas Station Volume 3 by Jack Townsend. The basic premise for this story is you are just continuing to follow Jack and him working at the gas station. Basically right where I left off in Volume 2. So, let's get into the book review. First, actually, before I get into the book review, let me state that I feel that, first of all, you should read the first two books. I know if you're watching this video, you should have already read the first two books, but definitely read the first two books because you need to know the characters, you know, the main characters, because there's different characters and different references from the first two books. But with that being said, I don't think you need to go back and reread the first two books. You know, there are some series where I feel you should go back and reread the ones before. This one, I don't think you need to. I think you can just pick Volume 3 up because by the time you got to the third, you basically know who a lot of the characters are, and you don't. And for the ones that you do forget, it comes back pretty quickly. And I'll get more into that in my book review because this one basically has its own story. It's just him continuing in the gas station. So let's get into the book review now. So Volume 3, it just takes place a few weeks after Book 2. And, you know, and it starts with a lot of mystery right from the beginning. He starts with mystery because he gives you like partial of like a crazy event and you don't know fully what happens. And he even talks about missing people, but he doesn't tell you what happens yet. And then he slowly starts to let you know throughout the chapter. And I noticed that this whole book does that more often, to where this book definitely gives you more mystery. Volume 2, I thought he improved a lot on the horror element by giving more horror, and then this part added more mystery. There's still a lot of horror in here, but it gave a lot more mystery because you were wondering a lot more throughout the book, because there were times like in a chapter he would start it and then you would know partial of the event and then he keeps revealing more and more as the chapter goes along, or even 2 or 3 chapters later, you would get to know more. So that's why I think that he added a lot more in the mystery element of it, because again, you do wonder a lot more based off certain events. I can't say it, but sometimes it makes you wonder, even from books 1 and 2, it makes you wonder, is this a multiverse? Is it time travel? Is he stuck in a time loop? You know, there are so many things, but like, it's a really fun mystery, and Jack Townsend pulls it together perfectly for that. You know, I think he does a great job with that aspect, especially because there are so many more events happening. This book is longer than the first two. I forget the exact page count. I think it's like 400 something pages. I forget the exact, but it's longer. So there's definitely more events. And also he doesn't need to explain the characters much anymore, because you should already know who Jack Townsend is, or who Jerry is and O'Brien. You should already know those characters. So that's why he doesn't really explain it much. But there are a lot of characters. Just like with the first two books, he does have a lot of characters, and there are a lot of just tiny characters that will be there for a bit and then disappear and then sometimes come back, other times not. It's basically the same as the first two books in those regards. Now, I did forget some of the minor characters from the first two books. Sometimes I would forget like a minor character, but it would come back very quickly. You know, like a dead character would resurrect. And I'd forget who that character, I'd recognize the name, and I'd forget the character, but then within like just a couple pages, I'd remember that, like, okay, yeah, that's who this character is. So that's why I say, do not worry, you do not need to go back and reread the first two novels of this. Now, as for the writing style, I would say that this writing is just the exact same style as the first two books. You know, it has the same humor and the sarcasm. It's basically, you know, his thoughts and perspective. He starts his blog again. But it's just, again, the same. It's just Jack Townsend's perspective. He's recognizing the events. He's doing it in a humorous and sarcastic way. And I know I've said this before, but it is just great how he continues to bring new jokes and new observations and funny observations, you know, so that's really good. But one thing that I thought this did much better in the humor category is I thought Jerry was so much funnier this time. You know, previously I was just like lukewarm with Jerry, but in this one I thought he was so much funnier, and that added a lot to the book to where I was laughing out loud sometimes about the things that they would say in the book. And I laughed out loud in all the books, but this one I did it definitely more. And I think it's because he made Jerry a lot funnier. So now let me talk about like the last maybe 20% of the book. You know, the reason I bring this part up is because it's really cool that in that part of the book he explains like a lot of why the crazy events are happening, and it kind of covers all the books about why all these crazy things are happening to Jack and why they're happening to the gas station type of thing. And he explains that, and he explains Jack's sleeping thing and what's going on there. And at first I thought the explanation was a little weird, but then actually in the end later I thought back upon it. I gave it like a day, and I was like, well, actually I like the explanation. And I actually now, even thinking back again, I actually really enjoyed the explanation, and I thought it was a really cool thing. And it was funny because when they were explaining it, someone has to explain it to Jack. You know, this is just a minor spoiler. Someone has to explain it to Jack about what's happening. And when the person's explaining it, he quickly states that when Jack looks confused, he's like, well, you know what? I'll explain more in book 4, which shows that there'll definitely be a book 4. And when I'm recording this review, I know there is a book 4, but the character even says, I'll explain more in book 4. So, you know, that's a lot of fun to know that there'll be even a bigger explanation in the next part. And I actually wondered, like, did Jack Townsend like plan this series? I don't know if he planned the series and is like fleshing it out, or if it's like volume 1 sold well so he knew how to add on to volume 2, because it's almost like he had planned the series. Again, I don't know how that worked out, but it's just he keeps adding more and more layers to it, which is a lot of good. Now, as for the ending of the book, I would say the last like 5-10% of the book, the absolute ending. There were some parts that did confuse me. There were some elements that confused me in that ending part. There were parts where I was just okay with, and other parts I really enjoyed. Because there were some confusion. I read online too that other people were confused, and some other people didn't like the end. But I've also read some people that really liked the end. But overall, you know, the ending I thought was a little confusing. I still understood it overall. I had to reread it, but then I did like the end overall. But it was the epilogue, or you can say the absolute end, that made it great. I thought the absolute end and the epilogue was great. Like, I thought the end was good. There were some confusions, but then the epilogue was like, that was the thing that knocked me off my feet. And I really enjoyed that. I can't say anymore without spoiling it. So, but I thought that part was great. Now, as for the areas that I did not like, the area that I did not like was the head subplot. I'm going to give a minor spoiler to where if you don't want to hear this, fast forward like 1 minute. But this is a minor spoiler. So basically, Jack, at one point, someone sends him a decapitated human head in a box. But this human head can talk. And it is of someone that Jack knows or have met. So, and this head can talk. And I don't know, I just did not find, and then Jack carries a head around, and, you know, I just did not like that subplot. And I'm fine. I need to make it clear. I was fine with like the dead people coming back to life, or him having to re-kill some of those people and all that stuff. You know, I was fine with all that stuff, and, you know, I still am. I don't know why though. I just did not like the head subplot. To me, it just was like, I don't know, it just didn't click. I have no idea why, but that's something I did not like about the book. So, but overall, you know, don't let that detract you, because I still thought that this was a fun story with great writing, because it was very engaging. You wanted to finish the book because there's humor, there's suspense, drama, horror, mystery, and it's just a very easy read. It's very easy just to pick up and read, and you want to continue it. So, you know, I just thought it was a great book. Now, I'm going to give it my official rating. Remember, my official rating has to be taken in context. I always rate my books on a scale of 0 to 10, with a 0 being awful, a 5 is average, and a 10 is phenomenal. If it gets 10, that definitely should be your next read. Because again, a 5 is average, and I'm known to be a tough critic, where it's hard to move up even 0.5 in my rating system. So, for this book, Tales from a Gas Station Volume 3. I'm going to rate this book a 7.5. Now, listen to a full explanation for this. A 7.5 is very high in my rating system, but I'm rating it a 7.5. I rated Volume 2 a 7.5, but I still think Volume 3 is better than Volume 2. I enjoyed Volume 3 better than Volume 2. The reason they got rated the same was because I felt Volume 3 did not deserve to get to an 8 status in my rating system. But remember, a 7.5 is still a very high rating, and I need to reiterate it. I thought this was better than book 2, but you know, it's just by a little bit. And if you look at some reviews online, I think it's kind of the same. I saw many reviews online that kind of gave the same thing, that it was better than Volume 2, but just by a little bit. But I still thought this is a great book. If you enjoyed Volume 1 and Volume 2, you're going to love Volume 3 of Tales from a Gas Station. If you guys have any comments, please comment below. I hope you guys click the subscribe button. Thank you for watching my video review for Tales from a Gas Station Volume 3. Now it's time to move on to Volume 4. But have a great time reading.